What do you want?
No one here is exactly what he appears.
Nothing's the same anymore.
Commander Sinclair is being reassigned.
Why don't you eliminate the entire non-homo?
I see a great hand reaching out of the stars.
You are.
President Clark has signed a decree today declaring
These
martial
orders
law.
have forced us to declare independence.
Let's let
people get off their encounter-suited butts and do something.
You are the one who was to Zahadu who will die.
Why are you here? Do you have anything worth living for?
Think of my beautiful city.
Giants in the playground.
Get the hell out of our galaxy!
We are here to place President Clark under arrest.
Hello, and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, Season 6, Chatzylon 5. My name is Alan, and a prophecy is a guess that comes true. When it doesn't, it's a metaphor. When it's kind of a prophecy, sort of, but you kind of have to like scrub past the dust and get all the gross stuff out of the way, that right there is Magellan. Hi, Magellan.
The salt will burn with the heat of war.
The salt will burn with the heat of war. God,
that's my
so right.
prophecy.
He's so right, guys. Isn't he right? Just let him know. Sound off in the comments.
And he, born of the 6th month,
will dab on them ass. I almost said a bad word. I wonder if
it's a prophecy about you, man.
I wonder.
Oh,
yeah. Really?
Yeah.
I wonder if Jakar would be into TikTok.
The salt is all the haters. You wonder if Jakar would be into what?
TikTok?
Yeah, probably. He'd probably think that stuff was funny as hell.
I'm actually ew. Why is my brain not ew? My brain's picturing him doing the dance the night away twice dance with the hands.
That's funny.
Somebody make a 3D model of Jakar and make him do K-pop dances now.
Oh man, yeah, that's all I want.
That's what season 5 of Babylon 5 is everyone's just doing K-pop shit.
I just need an augmented reality setup where I can put Jakar in front of me anywhere doing any sort of dance or like, gesture. That would be really
You can
funny.
just plug it into any situation. So you're just in line at the Starbucks, you're bored, but then right in front of you, like also waiting patiently in line is Jakar. And he's just like looking at his Apple Watch, tapping his foot like Sonic the Hedgehog. And you're like, he's here too.
Yeah.
So he just belongs.
And then he just hits the whoa, but so good.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Hits the whoa perfectly.
Quietly to himself in the Starbucks.
Yeah, he's kind of like humming along to whatever the song is. And he's like, I just did it in my chair, but you can't.
That was really good. I could feel it. I could sense that it was a good whoa.
Yeah, I'm continuously doing it actually.
Oh, you're still doing it?
Yeah, I did it 4 times.
Thank you. Okay. This, in theory, is a Babylon 5 podcast. Where John and I watch 2 episodes of Babylon 5 every week. We are back with more episodes of Babylon 5. It's been a while.
Yeah, we haven't recorded an episode discussion, like 2 episodes sit down, us talk about them.
Yeah,
in
like going on a month, bud.
A month, yeah, because we had pre-stocked a bunch of stuff, and then we did the recap, and then we did the movie commentary, and now we're back. It's season 5.
It's a whole new world we live in.
Yeah.
Getting into it, I want to talk about the episodes that we watched this week.
Please.
First up was Season 5, Episode 1, No Compromises, and Season 5, Episode 2, The Very Long Night of Londo Mollari. No Compromises was written by J. Michael Straczynski. It was directed by Janet Greek. It aired January 21st, 1998, and it takes place on Tuesday, January 13th, and goes to Saturday, January 17th of 2262. John, what happened in No Compromises?
In this episode, Sheridan is targeted by an assassin during his inauguration as president of the Interstellar Alliance. At the behest of Sheridan, Captain Elizabeth Lockley arrives from Earth to take command of Babylon 5. A group of rogue telepaths come to the station looking for sanctuary. Alan, what did you think of No Compromises?
So, this is more of a lower stakes episode than I kind of expected. Because we've had people that are like mad at the system try to kill Sheridan numerous times, and we got a new cast member, but that didn't even feel that exciting until I'd say the back end of the episode. Because early, like her first scene was great. Her first scene with, I believe that was with Corwin, was really interesting because you're like, what is her relationship to the ship? What kind of captain does she want to be? Commander, I mean, and how is she going to even attempt to replace Susan Ivanova? What does that even look like? And once we got into the assassination stuff, I felt like the episode kind of dragged a little bit just because it's spinning its wheels. We know this isn't going to go anywhere. But they're laying the pieces for a lot of really cool stuff. And I think it wrapped up really well. So, wow, what about you?
We're in season 5, and it's got that feeling of this is the last season and things are going to be weird.
Yeah.
So I think season 4 was such a nonstop go of big plot that to have kind of like throwaway dumb stuff in this episode was refreshing, but also kind of jarring. And I'm just excited to see where it goes, if it even goes anywhere.
Yeah, and 5 seasons is just around the point where you can have somebody like Corwin come back, and dedicated viewers are going to go, oh yeah, there's that guy who is weird, and he's in a dress shirt now, and he's talking to Lockley, newly appointed Commander Lockley, on the ship as she comes on, and he's kind of breaking down, instead of getting an Ivanova audio log this season, we get Corwin describing the fact that Babylon 5 is a constant mess and constantly chaotic. And that's just the normal state of things. Zach Allen is now chief of security. Everything's a mess all the time. It's never not a mess. Ivanova has left and has been replaced by Lockley. And Sheridan and Delenn live together now.
Sort of.
Kind of, in a weird situation. They have like do you think our parents know that we're dating yet? Can we live together if people don't know? Like, how big of a deal is this? We're married, but is it my bed? Are you going to bring your stuff over? Like, if they're in that kind of phase, or they're in the process of figuring out how and if they want to live together, what's that situation like? We get a new theme song, Magellan, which heartbroken to say I don't like it.
Oh, it's awful.
It's very bad.
So bad.
It's not a theme song, first of all. There's very little music in it. It's basically just, here's all the iconic lines from Babylon 5 in order, with years that they occurred and shots of those scenes happening. Like, there is a hole in your mind, and if you go to Zahadum, you will die. And, like, what do you... No one here is what he appears. Like, lines that, if you're watching Babylon 5 for the first time, on this new network, by the way, you're just like, what the fuck is this TV show about? It's just like weird, scary ghost men talking...
Is that why they're doing that? It's on a new network? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know I'm saying if that's why, then it's bad.
Yeah, because that doesn't help anybody understand what the show is.
Right.
Really.
Kosh is like, and so it begins. And you're like, what begins? The show? Okay. Nothing's the same anymore? Valen, huh? Like, it doesn't... It makes perfect sense to us, but to viewers. And it's like, hey, Babylon 5 is back. But then they do all of this stuff before we get any cast introduction. And then we do, and they're like, the graphics for that's like fine. And then it ends on...
Stupidly.
So the Babylon 5 logo is pierced by like a medieval sword, which is ridiculous and doesn't make any sense for the show. And then we cut to the ship, and on the back of the ship, like engraved into Babylon 5, created by J. Michael Straczynski. Corny. I like it. You said you don't like it.
Oh, I hated it.
That's
what are
so
you
sad. Why did you
about?
hate it? It's funny. It's his ship.
Because it looks stupid. Because come on.
It's 1998. I was 4 years old.
But like, listen, if it had always been like that from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
If it had always been like JMS made the thing, we would have gotten used to it. But going from something as fucking fire as the name of the place is Babylon 5.
Or like, we lost. Or it isn't. It failed.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Like it fit. Going from that to like created by us. Stupid.
I'm just trying to pick your brain about what's like. It's less exciting. I agree.
It's less I mean, it's just the graphics are cheesy, like the years zooming
Yeah.
to the screen. It's
Yep.
cheesy. It looks like I don't know. It looks like we're playing it off a CD-ROM or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just muddled. I can't really understand what they're trying to get at with like what they've picked and chosen of the dialogue clips.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just think it looks corny to have his name printed on the ship.
That I agree. I understand the intent of that, and I can see JMS being like, "Yeah, okay, sure, get my name on the side of the ship. It's my show," and like that's fine.
Yeah.
It really, if anything, if we're gonna overanalyze this, which we are, because that's what this podcast is, putting his name on the ship in the final season that's on a new network is very like auteur, filmmaker, showrunner. You know, like in the 90s, we talk about how like there weren't that many like notable showrunners for a while, like single people,
Yeah.
and now like every show is thought to be made by one person, even though they're obviously not.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of them leaning to like, yeah, it's his show. You know it. You know his name. Big name in comics. He's coming from another network. Here it is. It's a J. Michael Straczynski production. So like I get it, but I do think it's silly.
You accomplish that by putting his name at the end of the credits. It doesn't have to be printed on on the ship. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just like a flashy, like look what we can do. And what's weird is like all that stuff is cheesy and the CG is kind of bad, and then the CG in the episode was like good.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, they got to they finally got there. They said they were going to get there, and they got there. And so the beginning of the episode, we're mostly dealing with Lockley, who I like in theory so far. I don't know a lot about her, but I kind of like that that's the point.
Yeah. So what do we know about her?
She comes from Earth Force. They spent a lot of the episode being like, where did your loyalties lie during the war? And then she doesn't reveal in the end until somebody asks, like, yeah, I was working for Earth. Like, I was working for the Clark regime, I guess.
Yeah, that's sort of what's implied because they're so cagey about it. And at the end, Garibaldi's like, who did you work for? Or which side were you on? She said, I was on the side of Earth.
Exactly.
And it seems like that's partly why Sheridan picked her, because she was on the other side and he's trying to heal the divides.
Right. She's like, you didn't ask me what side I fought on. And he's like, I didn't ask you, you know? So I guess props to him for that. And I do like having this character who, in theory, is going to eventually fit into the dynamic of the show, but she just inherently can't right now.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know how things are run, but she makes her stake really early on by having in this episode, like, I take Sheridan's side. You know, what Sheridan decides to do, I'm going to do it. And we're like, or rather no. How does that work out? What's the part?
Well, so he's like, I brought you on this ship because you're a straight shooter, because you are a non-violent person, and because, yeah, you speak your mind. I guess I said that, you're a straight shooter.
Yeah.
And so immediately she's like, listen, I'm in charge of the station. I want to make very clear that what I say goes here. He's like, okay, that's chill, that's good. And then the big point where they first agree is over this issue of Sheridan has his life threatened. And everyone around him says, okay, well, we need to beef up security and like delay the inauguration. And he says, what's the point of that? Because this someone who is just intent on killing me at the expense of their own life, they're going to break through whatever security we have. And it's just going to make me look like this distant, closed off leader who's not really connected to the people that he serves. So I don't want to do that. I just want to go forward with it. And whatever happens, happens. And everyone's like, no. And Lockley says, I agree with him. Which sort of, I didn't like fully trust her in that moment. It feels like she kind of doesn't, because she's not invested, I feel like, in the Interstellar Alliance succeeding.
Right, inherently she's not.
I don't have any indication that she is.
Yeah.
But she backs him up in that moment. And that's kind of the first time that they're like on the same side. But then already there's a clash by the end of the episode where the rogue telepaths the island of misfit toys of telepaths, wanted to hang out on Babylon 5 and live there, and she said no. And then they go to Sheridan at the end, and he says, well, actually, yeah, forget what she said.
Right, because when they first talk, he says, I'm fine deferring to you on a lot of things. The only things where you defer to me are matters political and I think like the matters of the crew, I think is what he said. But the important one is that he
said political and anything related to the Interstellar Alliance.
The Alliance, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so what's great about that is that she agrees to it, and then I'm thinking, like, what exactly does political mean? Like, he can definitely stretch that in cases.
Right. That's how I felt in that moment. Is it's like, okay, you're giving yourself a pretty flexible boundary there,
which I think is intentional. But she's okay with it because she doesn't really have the option. And while I do think them agreeing that he should stay on low security is a moment where she's trying to prove that she's chill and that she's on his side, but we don't know her whole story yet. I mean, we can ask her the question we should be asking every new character on the show. Who are you and what do you want? What does she want out of this job? Like, why does she want to be the new tough, no-nonsense commander, whatever? And who is she? Where does she come from? What does her background say about how she plans to run the ship? Like, these are important things to keep track of as we see more of her on the show. But I do think Elizabeth Scoggins like blends in with the cast really well. And I could see her having like the big plot conversations along with everyone else. Yeah, Tracy Scoggins, Elizabeth Lockley. There we go.
I like her so far. It remains to be seen what they do with her. It feels like they're kind of keeping her closed off for right now, and I wonder how much interiority we're going to have time to get out of her. You know, because ultimately, like I still would rather see. Like, what I want to see out of season 5 is what the second episode gives us, which we'll talk about, which is like, hey, let's just kind of do this character work and wrapping up of loose ends with the people who've been here the whole time. So, like, let's work on resolving Lanier, let's work on resolving Londo, let's work on resolving Jakar. That's what I want out of season 5. And so now Elizabeth Lockley's here, and like, yeah, I want to know more about her. But if that's happening at the expense of spending time with the characters we love, I don't know if I'm that invested in that.
Yeah. This is not a season where I need to see like 6 new telepaths and be like, wait, do I have to learn these names? Like, are these guys important? And then
exactly. That scene where the lead rogue telepath guy is talking to Lockley in the secret hallway, and he's like, check it out. We've got like this girl. She's quiet and nice. And then this guy, and he's a little strange. He's literally one by one introducing us to the cast.
Yeah, it totally feels like
show.
Yeah, to a spin-off. It seems like, is this the cast of Crusade?
Right, exactly.
It's like there's a pretty lady, there's an old Asian guy, there's weird Fabio, there's 2 lesbians, and then there's a cute little boy named Simon. And it's like, what? Why? What are you doing? His name is Byron. When they first met him, when he's in the bar with Lockley and he like makes the room quiet, I thought that was really cool and scary, because something you don't even realize unless you're listening to the show, like with headphones or on a good sound system, is when we're on Babylon 5, we're constantly hearing ship hum, even if there aren't people talking. There's like Star Trek-esque ship noise, and he even cuts that out. And he's like, hey, you're gonna meet me in 2 hours, and we need to have an important talk. And he goes and he's like, hey, I'm a telepath. We're all telepaths here. We're not with Psychor. We're also not with the Resistance. We're a new special third faction called the Refugees, I guess.
Yeah.
And here's everybody. One of them is really weird. He puts an image of flowers in her head, and then Byron's like, he has a crush on you. He wants to kiss your boobs. Like, whoa! Simon's the horny child. And he doesn't talk. And they talk about later, like, oh, he went through a lot of trauma. He believes he was responsible for the death of a woman. And so he never ever speaks. And you're like, okay, maybe this is a season-long plot about this kid, like, learning to find his voice and stuff. What is this? Sheridan just gets a voice message from a guy being like, hey, Sheridan, hey, heads up, I'm going to kill you. Which, honestly, respect. And the guy is like, I'm going to kill you. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm a single lone gunman, like you said. even if someone stops me, I'll just take my own life and get you at the same time. It'll work out fine for me. So good luck. And Sheridan's worried. And at the extreme leftist that he is, he's like, Roosevelt walked around and talked to people, and all these other presidents are really cool. Like, I'm just going to be like everyone else. I don't need to live in like secret security quarters. Garibaldi rightfully is like, are you doing the martyr thing again, bud? Because that hasn't worked before. I mean, it's worked, but like, stop doing it. You're looking for reasons to die. Lockley asserts her authority against him and is like, you don't even work here. You don't even go here. So F out of here. Let Sheridan live the life that he wants. We learn that Simon can speak, but chooses not to. And then we get right into it. We get to the inauguration scene, which is hyped up a lot.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the the voice message that the guy leaves him.
Yeah.
Because it's cheesy to me in a way that I love, that every time Babylon 5 is listing historical events, they have to list one that's like from the past of the future, or the future of the past, just like, you know what I mean, the time in between now and when it's occurring. Because he's like, all these presidents you love died in office, like Lincoln, FDR, President what's his face of the Eastern Bloc, or
like,
whatever.
Wait.
I don't remember. I don't remember that one.
Not a lazy way to do like future science fiction, but like a corny way of like, yeah,
it's just like a Mad Libs way to do it.
Totally,
right?
totally.
Like
that's a good way to think about it.
It doesn't add anything to our understanding of the world, really.
Yeah,
but it's just like, you have to do it because it wouldn't make sense for these people to only talk about presidents from the 1800s when it's 400 years later.
Exactly. Yeah, that was very funny to me. And then before the inauguration scene, we also have a quick scene of Sheridan visiting Jakar. And Jakar tells him some interesting story about how he was born with a different name because Narn rarely live past like the first 10 years of their life because they're, they have short lifespans and they fight a lot. And so he has a different name, and he says, oh, Sheridan, I can call you president because maybe that's your real title. Maybe you've always like, it's a really beautiful like conversation to pick apart if you're looking for metaphors of the show, of like, you can change whenever you want. Like, you don't have to be called something from minute one of your career. You can transition whenever you feel like it. And I think that's really wholesome of Jakar. I like this sort of nicer Jakar. And then when Sheridan is like, I want you to write the thing I'm going to swear on my book, and he's like, I'll get on it. That's the only thing I'm going to do from now on. So he's really great. And then we get to the inauguration. Everyone is talking about being strip searched. And then Sheridan makes a joke about how he's glad he didn't have to see Londo's naked body, which, why didn't we get that? We got shirtless Londo in the second episode. We were so close. Just give me the Centauri penises, please. Please. Thank you, Magellan. I appreciate the support.
I'll make sure that they do it. I'll send a letter to the past.
Thank you. Surprising no one, Garibaldi confirms that the assassin worked for the other side during the war. And he gets in. He's. I love that he came in dressed as like one of the people with the gas masks, because like I don't think that race can live without those. So I think he definitely. I mean, he killed a person, took their gas mask just for a disguise,
right? And
then solidifying that Simon is not going to be on this show. He's like, "Oh no!" He finally talks. He gets killed.
Yeah,
and then
that's what happens if you're a side character that defies your one defining trait.
You're dead. You're doomed.
You're dead. Yeah, sorry.
Or you're a woman that's married to or dating the main character.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean,
you're right.
You're
right.
And then you think it's all done, and then it has to have like the video game-esque like epilogue ending where it's like, all right, he got away. Damn, I hate that. A good thing no one got hurt. And then they turn to a conveniently located window, and he's like, actually, I stole a Star Fury. I'm going to kill you.
So stupid.
None of this was needed.
That was so...
All you had to do was say that Sheridan defies what people say and decides to stay amongst the regular people. And when they looked for the assassin, Simon caught him and he died. And Simon also died. Instead, you have this one more scene where he's like, no, now I'm going to get you. And then Garibaldi's like, no, you're not. I have a gigantic claw hand. I'm going to pull you out of the air and nuke your ship. You're done.
Stupid.
I don't know what the whole purpose of this extra shot is, but it's there.
I have no idea.
And then Byron meets Sheridan. They're like, "Oh man, Simon's dead. I'm so sorry." And then he's like, I'm also bummed out that your friend Lockley said we can't come on the ship." And he's like, "You can come on the ship. I'm the boss."
Yeah.
It would be nice to have like 10 telepaths, since we don't know where Lita is right now.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we know where Lita is?
I forget where she didn't die in the war. She might just be on the ship and she hasn't been seen yet.
Yeah, she's in the creds.
Yeah, exactly. So she's still around. Patricia Tallman. You can't get rid of her that easily. And then, yeah, we had the last scene is Garibaldi talking to Lockley, being like, they needed a role for me on the show, but they also wanted to promote Zach Allen. So I'm the new head of, looks at notes in hand, covert ops. And then he asks her what side she's on. She says, "I was on the side of Earth. Weren't we all?" As he walks out. And you're like, ooh, that's a little spoopy. Babylon 5, getting back into it. We got mysteries. We have assassins. We're back to the game, baby. So I don't really have much more to say about this episode. Do you?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like we're starting, and it's I guess it's just kind of setting the stakes for there are going to be people from all over the place who are coming after Sheridan. I wasn't that moved by it being like a dude who loved Clark who hates Sheridan now. So I don't know. I guess we'll start seeing the Drock come back, and then this will get a little more interesting.
Oh, true. But, yeah, they're coming too.
Yeah. But right now it's like, okay, we're back in it. This season's going to be a little shakier in ways that are fine and fun, and I'm ready for it.
I feel like I had a side note somewhere. Oh yeah, just when we get the scene in the beginning of Sheridan and Delenn in his quarters, and she's like, "Why do you have socks hanging in the shower?" And he tells her this really goofy story.
I liked it a lot.
It's good. Like it's just very like it's lighter than the show usually is, but it's still like my old military commander used to be this wacky dude who's like, if you're gonna, and it's comedy in a dark way, right? Because the guy's like, I leave myself something to do when I come back so that I can't ever die, because if you have something to do, you can't die. So if I have to do my socks, then how would I ever die in war? And he's like, and that guy died. So it's a good bit of humor. And Boxlight delivers it quite well. But for now, Magellan, would you like to read this cornucopia of emails that we got?
I would love to. We've got a lot of stuff backed up in the email bag because we didn't read them last week.
Oops.
That's okay.
Yeah, we have emails going all the way back. So I can read this very first one from Ryan. All right. Ryan's, the subject line says, this is Ryan from Spin Polish. It says, baby daddy likey, which is a reference to you, I think. Did we say daddy likey on the podcast? God, this is terrible.
Probably, yeah, I guess
we have to cancel this. I'm sorry, everyone. But Ryan does say, thankfully we got the review of Risky Business that the world needed, as well as an entire history lesson on Woodrow Wilson. This is what Chat's Pod is really all about. It's true. And when it comes to the episodes that were discussed, this is referring to the last two of season 4. I have to say the conversation with Bester and Sheridan is one of my favorite Bester moments. I love when you have two characters needling each other and playing a game of verbal chess, and Walter Koenig knows how to play to that kind of scene really well. Now, although I enjoy this scene quite a bit, I often wonder how much better this would have been with Sinclair, since him and Bester had much more of a personal rivalry going on, with acts like Bester sending in people like Ari Ben-Zane to cost him his job. I forgot about Ari Ben-Zane. And when it comes to Ivanova and that scene with her crying, that is, at least in my book, number 2 in the top 5 sad scenes of Babylon 5. The number 1 is still yet to come. Good. I hope maybe it's in the second episode. Maybe it's that stuff. He says, I agree that it's troubling where Ivanova is left off, but like you said, it makes sense for a character to be in that mindset. And I mean, after all, this ties into the fact that she retreats into herself whenever tragedy strikes, like her initial refusal to sit Shiva for her father. Although TKO is still the worst episode, it does contain one of the true understandings of the central character flaw of Ivanova, which is that internalization that she often falls back on. You cannot run away from your own heart, Susan, not even in space. As you journey into Season 5, I'll warn you that there are many things you both stated that you'd like to see or be interested in happening on the show, and you may get them, but in the worst ways. For Season 5 is a cursed monkey's paw. He concludes that he really misses those Dan emails, and please come back to us, Dan. He did!
Yay.
He truly did. Thank you, Ryan. John, would you like to read this next email from, who could that be? It's Dan.
I would love to.
Oh, that's
What
a big one.
treat.
Oh, my God.
Yes, a Dan mail. Yeah.
Dan mail. Dan mail.
All right. So this is what Dan has to say about Rising Star and deconstruction of falling stars. Let's see. Dan says... Season 4 has 2 finales. Season 5 has 3 finales. By the end of the show, the word finale has lost all meaning. I know that it's easy to look at the episode Rising Star and assume that by the way things were seemingly all buttoned up, its events would have happened at the end of Season 5 without the compressed schedule. But the stuff about taking back Earth and pitching the new interstellar alliance still would have happened pretty early on in Season 5, and then the rest of Season 5 would have progressed mostly as it currently does. The one big difference is that there's a story arc that happens in early Season 5 that was originally supposed to last for 3 episodes. And to fill out the season, the arc now covers 10 episodes.
Oofa.
Yikes, yeah, no thanks. This wouldn't be a big deal except that the arc is pretty universally hated and is often the one thing that people point to when they want to say that Season 5 is bad. I find myself to be more charitable toward it upon rewatch, but we'll see what you think of it. And when I say original story here, I don't know how accurate that term is because JMS had a bunch of notes for Season 5 that accidentally got tossed out by an overzealous hotel maid, and he had to reimagine how Season 5 would go from scratch. Damn.
Yikes.
That sucks. Rising Star is, in my opinion, a pretty solid way to wrap up the Ivanova-Marcus romance, quote, he put quotes around that, setting aside Ivanova's bitterness. But here's the part where I completely ruin it for you. Unless another emailer has already beat me to the punch, the Ivanova-Marcus stuff technically isn't over. JMS totally ruined this arc with a short story he wrote for Amazing Stories magazine called Space, Time, and the Incurable Romantic. In this story, Marcus is brought back to life, as he was stuck in a cryotube upon his death, hundreds of years after the events of B5. And through some shenanigans, he creates a clone of Ivanova, sticks her memories into the clone based on some mind scans she had taken before her death, and then Marcus and this Ivanova clone settle down on some uncharted world and live happily ever after. The story has always been considered problematic for some very good reasons, but as far as I can tell, JMS still stands by it to this day. We'll have to read that one. That is something else.
That's a whole something.
Speaking of problematic, I'm glad to see that you guys had some questions about the White Star flyover that happens during the lens "We've created an alliance" speech. Earth has just endured a civil war, with one of the sides claiming that the other was under alien control. And then on the heels of Sheridan's "I'm stepping down" speech, a Minbari, something that might not read well on Earth in its own right, gets up and pitches this alliance to Earth and punctuates it with what looks like a very alien show of force. One might conclude that Earth's freedom fighters were indeed under alien control, and that now they've won, Earth as a whole is being pressed into allying with these aliens with a subtle "or else" baked into the White Stars violating Earth's airspace, buzzing right past Earth's defenses without anyone being able to do a thing about it, and rattling the building that they're all sitting in. As well-meaning as it might have been, the optics weren't great. Yeah, 100% agree on that. Let's see, and Dan now talks about deconstruction of falling stars, saying back in the day, this episode was considered a rather divisive episode with a lot of both lovers and haters. There are some people who just blanket hate the episode because it's technically a Season 5 production, and some people are just really invested in hating everything Season 5. That's stupid. And some people didn't like that. In some ways, this episode was JMS speaking from a bully pulpit, and that you can hear the author speaking more clearly than you can hear the characters speaking. I've mentioned it before, but some people were finding it troublesome that B5's initial thesis seemed to be too much power in the hands of one person or a small group always is a bad idea and never goes well for anybody, including the people wielding that power. But later, that theme seems to shift more towards absolute power is completely fine if it's in the hands of the right people. I think we've talked about that, actually, that sort of theme or tension.
Right.
Dan continues, part of the drive of this episode seemed to be JMS telling those people very one-sidedly that their stance is nonsense. I've always had a fondness for this episode, though, because I'm interested in the idea of looking at the story from a historical perspective, sort of dipping in occasionally to see how the chain of events unfold. Dan concludes by saying, at the end of the episode, it's interesting that humans would become so Vorlon-like. Not only do they become energy beings, but they also contain themselves in what looks very much like encounter suits. When he talks about going to a new Earth, it's generally believed by the fandom to mean that humanity is advanced enough to now move to the Vorlon homeworld. Something that's interesting and not necessarily addressed explicitly is the fact that the sun is dying way sooner than it should be. Even at that point, it should still have a few billion years of life left, but it's going nova nonetheless. As I understand it, the indications were that jump points were being opened inside of the sun, destabilizing it. Though it's never addressed who would do such a thing or why, there's something to be said for always leaving behind a mystery. And that's from Dan. Thank you, Dan, for being back and giving us these great Dan mails. Oh my God.
We're truly blessed.
Blessed.
I kind of like that point at the end about the whole Vorlon homeworld thing. Like, yeah, it's something for people who are paying attention to be like, wait a minute, that math doesn't add up, and that was clearly intentional. And also, Dan talking about leaving behind a mystery and not at all addressing the fact that he was gone for several weeks is him leaving behind his own mystery, and I love that. So thank you, Dan. You live your best life and keep living your best life until the police are knocking on your door, and then continue living it until they take you to jail, and then continue living it in jail. Write a book. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I do want to read the next email, Magellan.
Okay, do it.
Good. Nick begs us, please, pretty please, referring to me reading my short story as an audio play, referring to the short story I read last week that's similar, or in the deconstruction episode. He says, I'm pretty sure the $60 Patreon goal has been met, and that must mean something new. I'll do it. You know what? I'll just do it. Maybe one day you're going to be checking your $5 or up Patreon feeds, and you're just going to have an audio file of me with like some nice music in the background, just reading my short story from college about different characters in different time periods with the same theme. You'll just keep an eye on your feeds. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a little treat.
Yeah. Can I also read this other Nick mail, since that was kind of a slice of mail? He says, thanks, guys, regarding episode 50. It's nothing like hearing you guys talk about the wonder that is faxes to again make me feel old. Mitchell and I usually agree on a lot of things, but then every once in a while, even between the two of us, I'm like, you don't, I don't. When we like have things that one person has known their whole life and the other person doesn't. So faxes for me, I'm like, yeah, of course people still use faxes because like signatures and stuff, you got to do that. And then you were like, how do faxes work? And I was like, oh, jeez. Oh, boy. People complain about modern shows having too many endings, and I can again see that Babylon 5 did it first. The original dual ending of Season 4, with Rising Star and Sleeping in Light, was already an extra ending. And then Season 5 comes along, so we need a new second ending. And we got the extra epic scale and epic ending in the deconstruction of Falling Stars. And now you can look forward to 2 more endings for Season 5, as it has a similar new ending for modern year B5, and then the final airing of Sleeping in Light. But they're all good, so it works out. The impression I have about the Season 5 plots into Season 4 is similar to what Magellan said, in that a lot of plot points were moved over. The plots in Season 5, though, I feel like the latter half plot was part of the original plan for the 5-year arc, and the first half is new, and wouldn't have happened originally. So I guess this like relitigation of characters and the Lockley stuff is all new, and then the second half of Season 5 is like a Season 4 Part 2, as they understand it. Claudia Christian basically left because she didn't get more money and strung them along a little bit. She burned bridges with J. Michael Straczynski after then claiming in the news that the producers didn't want her when it was clearly not the fact. So the voiceover was because she wasn't available to come back and have a different ending. Though she does appear in the beginning and, of course, Sleeping in Light. If you want the extra dirt, it's found here on the Lurker's Guide. It's the gossipy online posts by JMS and Claudia back in 1997. To me, it sounds like there's plenty of attempts to keep things working, and she used it as an excuse to leave. Please pay your actors. Please pay your actors. Negotiate. This sounds like it was a tough situation. The New Earth Alliance president, is not strong enough to make a threat. She did have some decent lines in the script. Oh, he's referring to the lady, the European woman.
Yeah, that we didn't think was that good.
He says, I like the compromise of give you a medal, then have you shot. The White Star Fleet doing its military parade was just crazy. Cut back to an episode before, and John's leaving the non-human destroyers in reserve because he doesn't want to lead an alien fleet as the invasion force due to optics. Only calling them in at the last minute to take out the defense grid. I like that people, like, optics has been brought into the common lexicon of, like, everyone we talk to now. because that's the world we live. That's the hellscape we live in. I never took issue with Susan's line of maybe just boff him. She could have said something about giving him a date, but I assume that JMS wanted to get the joke in with the odd slang. It didn't sound like a pity fuck as much as she saw herself caring for him, and she could have seen herself being intimate with him if she wanted to give it a chance. This is like, I don't know if this is exactly this is sort of a thing that we did on the show recently where you said this is the worst joke in the history of the show. Oh, because this is the Londo Jakar eyeball stuff.
The Jakar horny eyeball thing.
I said I don't hate it, and then you naturally would be checking for hidden cameras in your bedroom. Wink, wink. I've been to Magellan's bedroom. There's some nasty stuff in there, but there's also Magellan.
What are you saying?
This is the podcast now, and you can't say these things.
What are you saying?
No, nasty like old history textbooks and...
Okay, yeah, thank you.
In regards to the deconstruction of Falling Stars when it first aired, I wasn't a huge fan, but on repeat viewings, I appreciate it so much more. I know JMS said that he plans out the major points in his universe and fills in the gaps, and the fact that he even had a hint of the idea of 1 million years into the future is great. Talk about putting the epic in epic space opera. Finally, Nick concludes some production notes about the episode, given it was part of the Season 5 production. When they shot 522, which is Sleeping in Light, they changed the shooting schedule from the usual 7 days to 6 days to prove it could be done. So 422 and the rest going forward are done in a slightly accelerated fashion, which I don't think you can tell otherwise, and doing this gave them the final assurance needed to approve a Season 5. Also, the Caterpillar Wrangler in charge of Londo's eyebrows was changed to better specialize in the, quote, extra thick and furry kind. Or maybe I was the only one bothered by this. Did you notice new eyebrows in in episode 2? I don't think I did.
Yeah, they looked weird to me, actually.
I kept thinking about his hair looking different, but I just
the
always
eyebrows look different.
I'll double check.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. That was a great email. What's next, John? What else we got?
I think this one from Marcus.
Yeah, that seems like the next one. Yeah.
Okay. So this one from Marcus, the subject line is Magellan doesn't know how fax machines work. I get it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Marcus says, let's get right down to it. Now that season 4 is in the bag, where do you guys stand on which season is the best? To me, it's still 4 for its narrative focus, especially in the latter half. Even when season 3 was ramping up to the Shadow War, it still felt too much time was paid to peripheral stories, and the payoff didn't match the build-up. One word, Justin. Agreed. Ironically, I found the oft-lamented accelerated pace of Season 4 to be more compelling, as its narrative thrust made it feel binge-worthy in a way Season 3 didn't until maybe the third to last ep. I really appreciated your take on Ivanova's last... just to respond to that question about seasons, I think we said in our recap that Season 4 is maybe what we like the most so far. I don't remember 100%, but I think that's what it was. Marcus continues. I really appreciated your take on Ivanova's last scene in Rising Star, that it wasn't very fulfilling as a completion of her character arc. I hadn't really thought of it that way before, but you're right. It's kind of heartbreaking to leave this person we've come to care for in such a dark place, and doesn't bode well for her chances of opening herself up to someone again. And yet, as a great man once said, it do be that way sometimes. even if it may not have been the original plan to unceremoniously play her off with a voiceover, I like to think that she's on her way to being a badass ship captain, a la Janeway from Star Trek Voyager. Also, if she made it this far, I think she'll be okay. For what it's worth, my take on the Boft thing was her just making a joke to lighten the mood, rather than an actual regret. R.I.P. Marcus. He was the best of us. He seems a little biased. But lest you think we've seen the last of long-haired self-righteous British lads on B5, whoo boy are you in for a surprise. All I will say is that his successor is even more polarizing, but I can't wait to hear your take on him. One more question for you. I know the pew-pew space battles have never been your favorite, but surely you must have noticed the vast improvement in CGI and set pieces. I was genuinely riveted from Point of No Return onward, and I wonder if you guys felt the same. Speaking of which, I'd really recommend going back and revisiting the space battle in Season 3's Shadow Dancing, as that's a series high point in my opinion. I thought they were pretty cool, yeah.
The space battle?
Yeah, at the end of Season 4.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look for like a YouTube video that's just a montage of space fights from Babylon 5 because there's very good ones in there.
Yeah. Lastly, a bit late, but big up to Alan for being a fellow member of the Bodega Hive.
Yeah.
Seeing the Fox News panel bit in Deconstruction of Falling Stars, which I also love, I was immediately reminded of this. And there's a video.
This is from their old. This is from the Vice show. This is the video of them talking about Joyanne Reed and people commenting on her being terrible.
Got it. Keep up the great work and enjoy the beginning. Enjoy In the Beginning, which we watched last week. It's so well made and thrilling that I forgive any of its prequel sins and like to think of it as only loosely canon. Marcus. P.S. I have a Pilot Chats request. Oh, Deep Space Nine. We'll talk about that on Pilot Chat.
Yeah, that's for the extra kids. I just want to say thank you, Marcus, aka Young Chipotle, aka Pocket Stay Fat like Tyrio, aka Pocket Stay Fat like Here we go, aka Chris Tap or Sling Dick, aka
All right,
kids, all right. I'm just big fan. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Marcus. Wow, haven't heard from all these friends in a while. The last two emails I'm just going to batch together and then we can call it here for this first half. Nick is saying that we talked about DuckTales in a long cold open back in Freak Chats, which is funny. And then he just happened to be watching the new DuckTales and playing DuckTales Minecraft with his children recently, which is adorable. So thank you that. And then the last Nick mail about Babylon 5 is this one. Yes, this movie, referring to In the Beginning, did not need to exist except to prove to Magellan that Sheridan did not, in fact, do war crimes. He was justified, damn it. Now apologize. Magellan?
No, I don't apologize.
Thank you, Magellan.
He still nuked a bunch of people. It doesn't matter if he was doing it in self-defense or what. I guess he wasn't like I'm evil taking joy in it. But like he still killed a bunch of people, so sure. I'm not going to absolve him of that.
Yet. Just kidding. He goes on, the scene between Franklin and the general about his medical notes would have worked a lot better if his dad played a part in the conversation. Yes. Something this general put in his face about causing shame to his family or whatever. Yeah, like how cool would that have been if it's like, yeah, shame to your family. Like your dad, who could also be here for reasons that make sense. He says also, it bothers me that you have scenes with Sheridan, Franklin, and Jakar, and friggin' Delenn, because that is such a retcon that none of them ever mention it again. This is the thing we've talked about in our commentary, is that all these people are in the beginning.
Exactly,
and then they meet again. It's bad.
I think I brought that up in the scene where Sheridan is like, hey, what's up, Jakar?
Totally. And like, why would Jakar be fluent in Minbari, a species that until post-war was entirely kept to themselves? Like, he could be okay in Minbari, but why is he fluent in a language he's never going to ever use? From people he's never met.
I mean, Jakar is like a upper crust diplomat guy. Like maybe I buy a little bit more.
He just learns languages,
just knowing each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing Jakar, by the way, a little closer to his original scheming self was good. There was a missed opportunity for the pain rings to come back. Fuck the pain rings!
I fucking forgot about those cool rings.
I want the rings.
I thought those were really going to be a thing.
Yeah, there was like, this is the show. Like, Delenn has pain rings, right? Was it Delenn or him? I think it was Delenn.
Somebody. Yeah, and didn't she have like rings that all did different things?
Yeah, what the frick? Oh, man. Now she's busy being in Wife City. She's trapped in Wife City. Let her out. Seeing Londo again was nice, but I have to ask what happened to his career between the war and Babylon 5. Jakar in his mind attack learned that Londo was appointed to B5 as a joke and not a matter of high status, because the fate of the other ones. He went from being the main contact to Earth and the ability to order a ship to attack the peace talks to being the lowliest member of the diplomatic corps of the Centauri. I mean, I assume
it's
he
sort
was...
of a quick turnaround for him to fall from grace, it seems like.
Exactly. The timeline is messy there.
Yeah.
It has not come up before, but the Great Council member Copeland is one, named after producer John Copeland. I've seen that name on the credits a lot. And two, played by Buffy alumni actor Robin Sachs, who you may remember as Giles' former best buddy.
Rain. I forgot about him.
There's infinite ridiculous stuff from Buffy that I always forget.
Fuck, we gotta watch that show again.
Don't we? Don't we just have to?
Yeah, we
Oh my god, Ethan was like his British friend. Oh, frick.
Yeah, who like... Never mind. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah. In hindsight, it would have been better if the probe of Sinclair shined really brightly and only a little bit for Delenn. If you want to explain how he has the soul of Valen and she's only slightly related to him, that makes a lot more sense. And maybe sort of pass how she didn't put it together. Like if it was like, you got to really squint to see it for her. But then for him, it's like the viewer can't miss this. He concludes Babylon's 1 through 3 were destroyed via terrorist bombs. Don't you dare say bad things about the build quality of our workers. But it does say a lot about their security that they can't protect multiple space stations from continued bombings. I assume that's why they have a whole security department now, and also a covert ops department, is because of stuff like that. They eventually were like, we can't keep letting people bomb the Babylon ships. That's bad. Yeah. And the best part of this movie was IMO seeing Sinclair again, even if it was enjoyable, even if it was just a somewhat enjoyable and totally not needed movie. If it meant some small amount of residuals for O'Hare, I'm happy it exists.
Agreed.
I believe most if not all of that was archive footage, but that would still get him a credit in the billing of the movie. So yeah, that was a moment where I seriously, like, we were having fun in that commentary and laughing about, like, oh man, this is so goofy and dumb, but seeing Michael O'Hare, I was like, ooh, I feel something.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you everybody for all these wonderful emails. Now we're all caught up on chat's emails. So Magellan, I think you know what that means.
We gotta take it to the break and get ready for part 2.
Let's do it. We'll be right back to discuss The Very Long Night of Londo Mollari.
Welcome back to Chatzylon 5. The second episode we watched this week was Season 5, Episode 2, The Very Long Night of Londo Mollari. It was written by J. Michael Straczynski. Have I done the SNL intro bit before?
Multiple times.
Okay.
Do it again.
Okay, here we go. It's Babylon 5, written by J. Michael Straczynski. Directed by David J. Eagle. It aired on January 28th, 1998, featuring Lorraine Newman, Pete Davidson.
No.
And that's it. That's the whole cast. Musical guest, Ronald Weasley. I couldn't.
Wow, he's back.
Takes place Tuesday, January 28th to Wednesday, January 21st of 2262. Alan, what happened in the very long night of Londo Mollari?
Well, I'm glad you asked. In this episode, Mollari suffers a heart attack and falls into a surreal dream, where he must face his greatest fear in order to survive. Lanier decides to leave Delen's service and return to Minbar. John, what did you think of this episode?
I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, What?
Go ahead.
It's not like, the most incredible episode of Babylon 5, but like I texted you earlier today, if you just gave me a supercut of all of the Londo Jakar plots and just put that on a VHS, I could pop that in the player, and that's all I need from Babylon 5. Like, if I'm rewatching, that's all I need. Just give me those. And this episode was a big moment in that arc, that relationship arc. So I loved it. What do you think?
Yeah, this is definitely what I want more out of season 5, is this sort of, I said earlier, like relitigating or re-examining things that you didn't think you wanted more of at the end of season 4. It felt like they were, covered, taken care of, whatever. We talked about how season 4 ends with Londo and Jakar being like friends. It's like they hang out together, they go everywhere together. And what this episode reveals is like Londo's he wasn't good. He was only good enough to like make the impression of being okay, and he still has a lot of trauma to deal with and a lot of his own baggage that needs to be handled. I think actually if I have any criticism of this episode, it's that the framing device of him going on this journey while coming off of a heart attack is a little bit like easy, but it makes a lot of sense that like, yes, years of stress and anxiety and binge drinking and casual sex and like heavy eating and all this stuff, that can really mess up your two hearts.
Yeah.
you know. But it's just more like, you know, it's not a drug thing. It doesn't, like, the way time works is really different too. Like, he's having this in the span of, like, I don't know how long he's on the operating table, but it really does feel like a very long night, though. Like, you watch the med bay staff come in and out, and some people are going to bed and leaving, and everyone is still working on it, and you're down to, like, a skeleton crew by the end of the episode of just the people being like, we are here to sustain Londo in case we need to pull the plug or not. That being said, it's a great episode overall, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And
I agree that the frame feels convenient, for sure. Especially because the episode sets you up to think that he was, like, poisoned or something, just that something's going on.
Right, because he is trying to get Zach Allen to, like, let him bring his usual alcohol in without it, spending 3 days in isolation, because it'll get all gross, and then he sniffs it and immediately passes out, and they're like, oh, cool, so someone's poisoning Londo. And then it's not 10 minutes before you have somebody going up to Veer being like, Londo wasn't poisoned, he had a heart attack. You know? So, yeah, the setup is a little wonky, but all of this is in service of an amazing character study, and, like I said, reveals an understanding of the character that we didn't even think we needed, but I felt very satisfied by.
Agreed. I think what we could talk about first is the other part of this episode that doesn't get as much time.
Right.
But is also similarly like a beat in a relationship that we didn't know we needed, but I think we're glad happened, which is, I'm not glad it's happening actually, but I do think it's necessary in season 5, which is that Delenn discovers that Lanier has made arrangements to leave B5.
For good.
That's it. I'm leaving. And she goes to talk to him. She's like, Lanier, what my romantic manipulations of you seem to be breaking down. And he's like, no, Delenn, they're too effective. So now I'm going to go into the military to be even more love-worthy. It's, like, pretty sad.
Well, it's even worse than the military. He's going to become a ranger.
Right.
So he's going to, like, you will take no vow. He's going to, like, the Night Watch, basically. This is him being like, well, I guess I have nothing to live for anymore other than to protect the world. Like, the Night Watch comparison from Game of Thrones is, like, super accurate, because you don't leave. It seems like you don't really leave the Rangers. You don't, like, become one and then leave one. And he frames it as, like, with Marcus gone, I felt the need to replace him. But really, it is, like you said, it's, I can't take this way that you're treating me anymore. I'm missing something. I need to find fulfillment elsewhere, you know?
Right. And the thing that has changed is that she and Sheridan are married now. Yeah, there's no more hope for him and her being a thing. Yeah.
And you, like you said, and I understand your like hesitation saying that you wanted to see it, because we have expressed a lot of frustration in the way that Lanier has been handled in the back half of the show, and how it seems more like it was romantic attraction that he had for Delenn, and maybe sexual attraction. And so this is more like, yeah, we're going to acknowledge that. We're not going to kind of navigate around it. We're going to talk about how she has manipulated him and made him feel really bad. And, you know, it's not going to have a clean cut either. I think the other thing I like about both of these plots is that they don't end like, and everything is fine. Lanier still leaves.
Yeah, it just kind of hangs on him saying, we'll see each other again. But for now, goodbye.
I think that's what he needed, though, right? Like,
I agree. It's what he needed. I'm bummed out to, like, not see Lanier anymore. At least
of course.
I don't think that we're going to get, like, C-plot scenes of him, like, training or something.
Oh, God.
That would be funny, but the show just doesn't really work that way. I think if this was like Battlestar Galactica, we would definitely get that, because like Battlestar Galactica or like Game of Thrones, another example. Those are the kind of shows that are like, we're going to show you what every character is doing all the time,
even when they're not together.
Yeah, like every episode is just going to be made up of 5 minutes of each character doing their thing.
You know what I think it'll be, Magellan, though, in this show?
What?
I think it'll be kind of a halfway point of that, where we're not going to get him like every episode, but we're going to get episodes where it's like Lanier's working with the Rangers and he's uncovering some plots, like, because we needed a Marcus.
Yeah, but we won't ever get him alone, I don't think. I think it'll always be in the context of him coming like to Babylon 5 to say like, hey, here's what's going on.
Yeah, that I'm not sure of where he shows up, but I do think Lanier still has some roles to play in the story to come.
For sure, just not as much as I, would want from him.
Yeah, of course. And all this is in service of that fantastic scene at the end where him and Veer have both had these like really incredible like re-examinations of their relationship to their attaché or to the person that they are attachés to.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come back and they have drinks at a bar together and they're like, they have the little one-upsmanship contest where he's like, man, what a day, what a week, what a year, what a life. He's like, Veer's like, you win.
Yeah.
Or Lanier is. And they talk about how the origin of the Shirley Temple, and Lanier is like, I'd love to go there someday.
I
Pray
that.
at the Shirley
oh
Temple.
My God, I love that.
And that stuff's only rewarding because we've seen the two of them bond, and we've seen both of them go through so much hardship in this episode.
Well, we haven't seen a lot of them talking to each other, actually.
We've had a little bit,
but it does feel special that this is
when it happens.
Part of Lanier's send off is that he gets to talk to Veer, who I think we think of very frequently as like a parallel character to him, but he actually doesn't interact with Veer very much.
Right. But that's the brilliance of this, is that it feels like it makes sense. It's like, yeah, they would just both find themselves at the same bar at the same time. That like makes a sort of cosmic sense.
Yeah.
But to speak to Veer's plot, if you want to transition back to that,
yeah, let's do it. I think that's
Londo.
what we can say about Lanier.
Yeah, and I'm gonna
for now
miss having him on the main gang, but alas, he's got to go somewhere. So Londo's was not poisoned. He had a heart attack in his left heart. We learned that the Centauri have two hearts, one for pumping blood and one for cleansing the blood before it goes into the right heart.
Mm-hmm. I want more of Dr. Franklin just doing xenobiology jargon. I
explaining all
really
that stuff?
enjoyed this when he's like got the hearts up on the chart and he's like, this heart does this, that heart does that. That was cool.
I mean, just teach me a college course at this point.
Yeah.
Dylan and Sheridan are really worried because Londo probably is not going to make it 24 hours. I think using matters of the heart in medical drama is a really easy out for like acute problem solving, if that makes sense. Because heart problems cannot be fixed. Like, it's not like this is going to take years to fix unless it's like you have high blood pressure or you have you need a heart stent. When you have a heart attack, it's like, no, tonight I'm keeping you alive. Today is the day that you either die or live.
Yeah, it's a very immediate, it's an easy device because it can happen very suddenly.
Yep.
Without warning, to someone who seemed like they were fine. Mm-hmm. And it has to be fixed suddenly. So it's not like cancer where
exactly
it could be coming on for a while and then it's this, a long thing that becomes part of what the character is doing or how they're living. This is it can happen within this night, like you said.
And I love that it's so mundane. Like when he says, yeah, it's stress and anxiety mostly, you're like, yep. Actually, yeah. You know what? This guy, I'm surprised he didn't have a heart attack before now. Mm-hmm. And so we cut to the inside of his brain, and we spend a lot of time now in Londo's head as he is going through his problems and having different figures from his past speak to him. The first one we see is Delenn as a soothsayer, showing him tarot cards. I like the idea that Londo just thinks of Delenn that we thought of her in season 1, where he's like, she's the lady who tells me my future. That's what Delenn's for. Mm-hmm. She asks him if he wants to live. She shows him the tarot cards, and they bleed, which is a great effect. The cards themselves actually
mm-hmm.
leak blood.
Mm-hmm.
He says, maybe I don't, maybe I do. She says, you do. You have something to do. You have something left to do. She tells him to look behind him. He sees a vent on the floor that contains his beating heart. Several times its normal size. He's confused by this, but Delenn says, you understand.
Mm-hmm.
As is appropriate with Babylon 5, I hyperanalyzed all of these scenes for symbols and colors and visual stuff and nods to other things, but this is pretty straightforward psychoanalysis.
Yeah, right.
You're going to die. It has to do with your heart, and your future is bloody. Easy. Nailed it.
Yeah, got it. Figured it out.
One sec. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Where were they?
Just that the symbolism of the dream part was kind of obvious.
Oh yeah, you have something to say about that?
No, I said what I was going to say. Like,
okay,
that's funny. Yeah.
Oh yeah, then we get some really cool camera work as we go into the next Londo flashback, because Veer is like walking away from his conversation with Lanier. This is a cute moment too, by the way, where they say goodbye with a traditional Minbari farewell, where they like clasp their hands together. And then Veer's like, no, I need a hug. And he goes for like the most biggest, sweetest bear hug of all time. And I melted in this moment. They miss each other. They're going to miss each other so much, these boys. He walks out, and then, like I said, very clever camera work. Veer leaves, and Londo is now in the same hallway, walking through his next vision. A lot of really good like I'm not Twin Peaksy. I don't want to say that every weird dream sequence is Twin Peaksy because that's lazy, but very like cool using the camera and using quick,
dream,
and
kind of
dream, yeah, well, right. Outfit changes to kind of like convey that things are going dreamy.
Yeah,
because he speaks to Sheridan at a bar, and he's saying, "How does it feel to be dead? Like you're dead. You've been dead before. You know what it's like." And some of this symbolism is pretty obvious to the point where even Londo is like, wow, really? Empty liquor bottles? Like, okay, guys, I get it.
Yeah.
We're doing this. Thanks, world.
That was funny.
Yeah. Peter Jurassic's the kind of guy that
he said the metaphor is getting thick. I think
he's getting
how
thick.
He put it, yeah.
Yeah. Like, again, Sheridan is cutting. We cut away from him. We come back. He's in a new robe. And he's telling Londo, you need to face the things that have plagued you in life. You have to, Londo.
Mm-hmm.
Look at them. He says, I can't turn around. Turn around, Londo. I cannot.
I like that Londo throughout all of this is like, you guys aren't being very nice to me.
This isn't fair. No, this is my brain because it's his brain.
Dream. Yeah.
Like, I can relate deeply to like the part of your brain that knows that you're doing something wrong and the part that's like, no, of course I'm never going to do the right thing. Fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one has to say anything, but we're looking, like the camera just pans over and Jakar's right there, smiling and waiting. Like, I'm right here. Just turn around. You got to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the times that we cut away as they're trying to like jab Londo with I think epinephrine or something, we see a shot of him shirtless and he's very hairy. We've never seen this before.
He's got his flappy gills or something. Oh, those are his like tentacles. I don't know what's going on there, but there's something on his chest. Besides
just delicious Centauri hair.
It was kind of weird that he was hairy, right?
No, what? Londo has big hairy energy.
I think Peter Jurassic does, but like the Centauri being a hairy-bodied race doesn't make full sense to me.
Especially if they have like a sort of like gel. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
They've got kind of like an amphibious vibe to me.
Yes, that I see what you're saying. Totally.
Yeah.
So we see that briefly.
They couldn't like wax him or something. So
no, they're gonna just show, and it's brief.
Yeah.
It's such a brief shot, but I was like, oh my god, we finally got shirtless Londo. I'm happy.
Yeah, I should be thankful for the gifts we've received.
Yeah, exactly. They're feeding us. What's it called? Jakar is doing the thing that, like, I bet you a lot of listeners, viewers watch this and are like, is this Londo's consciousness? Is it like the telepath that's in Jakar, that's in his brain?
Yeah,
and then Jakar's like, I could be that.
Jakar even says,
exactly.
Essentially gives us a menu of like, here's what you could think it is.
Don't worry about it. I'm one of those things.
Yeah, it ultimately doesn't matter. That's kind of JMS's way of saying like it's not important. The point of this episode is the character thing and not the logistics of what's actually going on.
Exactly.
I like to think. I mean, it just sounds coolest for it to be like a kind of fragment of Jakar that was imprinted upon Londo when he like went into Londo's brain. That's like the coolest version of it, so I'm gonna go with that as my headcanon.
My favorite headcanon is it's sort of the same way I think about Bob from Twin Peaks, where he is like the evil that men do, and he's also just a dude. Yeah. Like this is like definitely a piece of Jakar's telepathy brain in Londo, and it's his consciousness, like, and it's
right. They've like wrapped fully around each other to the point where you can't really distinguish the two things.
Exactamundo.
Yeah.
So he talks about that stuff, and he says, Londo, the only way to be forgiven for this stuff, you have to apologize. And then Londo finally says, I've never apologized to anybody in my entire life.
That doesn't feel true. I feel like we've seen him apologize.
Right? Maybe he's saying like I've never meant it.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like how I say I don't drink soda since it's my 18th birthday, but I've clearly had
I was
soda.
about to call you out on that, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I was. Not on the
yeah,
podcast,
I'm a
in
huge
person.
hypocrite. I've drank soda plenty of times. It's just what it more is like I haven't like sat down and been like I'm gonna have a soda. I have not done that at all.
Sure.
If someone tells me like I want you to try this, or if it's in alcohol, I'll have soda. But I'm not like looking. I'm not seeking out soda.
Right. No. I understand.
Thank you. I need to defend my valiant position in life. My cruel mission. Londo finally breaks down. He's scared. I get it. I get why he doesn't want to apologize, because apologizing means accepting that you've been wrong all this time and you've
Yeah, you did something
right.
wrong. Yeah.
And he, as soon as he does that, he realizes, yeah, I've made a ton of horrible mistakes. And we start getting all this imagery. I didn't even take notes on this part because it was so, I was like rapt by it. But we see Jakar be like, you had plenty of opportunities that were way easier than this. You didn't have to wait for your heart to give out to say sorry. You could have said it before you sent Morden's people after me. You could have said it when I was being tortured to death in front of you. You could have said it before they took my eye. You had a million chances to just be like, oops, my bad, or like, don't kill him.
Right.
And you never did it, and you kept stopping. And Londo's like rejecting all this, and it's beautiful. And we get that scene where we're getting the torture scene again, but it's Londo watching another Londo in like Jakar's clothing.
Oh my god, yeah. It was, I mean, building up to it, yeah, I loved the deconstruction of all of Londo's like ways of rationalizing what he'd done. Like the part to Jakar where he says it wouldn't have done anything when he's watching Jakar getting electro whipped again, and Jakar explodes at him basically and says like it doesn't matter. That's not the point. Like this is where Jakar has arrived as a character. Is he is someone who does the right thing because it's right.
Right, exactly.
And not because it's like going to get the best results, not because it's the most strategic thing to do, but do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. And that's what Londo's getting from this when Jakar says it doesn't matter. You were, by not saying anything, whether you saying something could have changed things or not, you were a witness, is how he puts it.
Yeah, you absolutely weren't going to stop me from getting whipped, but you stood in front of him and didn't say anything.
Yeah. You were a witness. You were a witness to that. You were a witness to
the destruction of the homeworld.
My world, being attacked. You stood there and watched. And then, things morph, and we have Jakar dressed up like Cartaja and like doing a half Cartaja impression.
It's pretty spooky.
Super spooky. Man. I also loved, by the way, when Jakar is yelling at Londo and saying like, you said nothing. There's a moment where he's saying that about the torture, or he's saying something about the torture, like you could have said something. And the camera's in such a tight close-up, and Jakar turns in such a way that you see that his eyes are mismatched.
Yeah.
And you remember, like, oh, yeah. He's got a fake eye because Londo, like, let that happen to him. That's just a visual reminder that in that moment I was like, fuck, that's a lot.
This episode has a lot of great visual symbolism, the way like the Sheridan torture episode did, where it's just like the way that they frame things and everything is in black. Like this is another episode that felt like it could have been shot as a play. A lot of these like just outfit changes and stuff would have been really easy as Londo walks through his subconscious.
Yeah. And then, like you were saying, we get Londo watching himself getting whipped, and ultimately that culminates in him screaming. And then in him finally saying to Jakar, like, Jakar, I'm sorry.
Right. Crucially, he says it in his head. Then he wakes up briefly. Franklin's like, don't you die on me.
Yeah.
He turns to Jakar and says, I'm sorry. Jakar, did you expect him to say, I forgive you here? Truthfully. Yeah.
Jakar? No.
I kind of felt it. I felt hopeful the way that Londo must have felt hopeful in that moment. Because I was like, could he really, like, would he say it? Maybe is this the moment? Because for Londo, he's had it. He doesn't really need Jakar to say, I forgive you. He just needs to say this. He's completed his quest. But to get that back would have been like such a big moment for the two of them.
But I think the point is that Jakar, as much as he can, has forgiven him already. Like that is why this needs to happen, is because Jakar had in season 4 been like, get away from me, don't talk to me, you're dead to me. And then by the end of season 4, he's helping Londo to write the statement with the League of Non-Aligned Worlds and all that stuff. And so Jakar, by his actions, has buried the hatchet and has forgiven Londo. And he's there by his bedside, like waiting to see if he's okay. So we don't need to see Jakar say, I forgive you, because he has.
Exactly.
It's just that Londo never apologized.
And so Jakar just like smiles at him and then walks out. And I was like, oh my God, that's so, it's
perfect.
Way better than anything else they could have done there. That's like pitch perfect, nailed it. And then Veer realizes what's going on and like gasps and continues to monitor Londo. And then inside of his head, he finally shatters the barrier to his heart as he screams, I'm sorry, and grabs at it. And what I love here is when he wakes up, he's next to Veer. He's got Veer at his side. And he says it's like a cruel joke. Like the world is a cruel joke. I'm still here somehow. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm ready to try again. Like I'm ready to do this. To live and to be an honest person. Like he's finally had it.
I really felt for Londo in this episode. Just as, I don't know, I think maybe people haven't been in this place, but I've definitely been in this place, you know, in my past and recently as well, where it's like I have fucked up and like hurt somebody, and you know, obviously not to the level of like committed planetary genocide or something like that, but just the way that the arc that Londo goes through in this episode of like trying to hold on to, no, I'm a good person, or like, no, I can't be responsible because there's nothing I could have done. And then having Jakar yell at him and say like, you're not upset because you feel bad, you're upset because you got caught, like all of these things. And then seeing Londo just completely break down and then emerge from that with this, who knows whether it's like true that he's changed or whether it's a sort of like delusion or just like a naive hope. But I don't know. I felt really connected to Londo's arc in this episode because it just felt really real and transferable. The way that it was performed by Peter Jurasik, it felt transferable to like if you're a viewer and you've been in any sort of position where you've hurt someone or felt guilty, you know, I think you can see yourself in that portrayal.
Right. And you said, you know, you haven't committed a genocide. I don't think anybody watching this show has. I don't think the act matters. It's more the feeling of like, I've done a thing that I know I can't be forgiven for, and I know I can't back out of, and I can't say sorry about, but I have to live on. And what's fantastic and what's very, I think, postmodern almost about this, like Londo waking up, is he doesn't have the Ebenezer Scrooge moment of like, I'm better now, I love everyone. Like he's still a blowhard. He still complains about the food. Veer's like, you gotta eat better. He's like, you don't tell me what to do, Veer. Like he's not fixed. You know, he's not like. There's a lot of older media that portrays like sort of vision quests and self-examination like this kind of has people come out as if they became a enlightened person, like they're perfect now. But Londo comes out of this incredible experience and is like, okay, everything still sucks. I still suck. Let's keep going. And that's so real.
Yeah, right. And the one kind of talking point that he and Veer have about it is it's like a superstition, almost, about, because Veer says like, oh, there's this, or no, maybe Londo brings it up. I don't remember who brings it up first, but there's this thing among Centauri that like if a Centauri's soul is in the body of an unworthy person, then it will like kill that person so that it can move on to a worthier body.
But if they survive it, then they become a changed person.
Then they have become worthy and are completely changed. And so I think, Londo wants to hold on to that, to be like, I've changed, I'm better. But then the other side of that coin is Veer's like, well, yeah, but that could only happen if like the soul is totally angelic and the body was like the worst fucking dude
just
in
a
the world.
Garbage.
Just like a monster. Actually, but you, you killed all those people, but you're fine.
Good.
And I loved that line at the end of the scene where Veer says that he had been hearing that story or that
legend, myth,
that idea,
sure.
That legend, yeah, his whole time growing up, and Londo's like, that's strange because I haven't.
Yeah,
like it tells you so much about Londo and like how he grew up in privilege, basically, and the morality that he grew up around, that he never was told stories about like, what it means to be a good person and what it means to be deserving of something greater than yourself.
Exactly.
And like all that. That says so much about the two of them.
It's pretty historically accurate, as I understand too, the fact that it was the middle and lower classes of society that would get the religious text that was like, through penance comes salvation and we are all screwed until we fix ourselves. And, that sort of Catholicism like it was primarily practiced for a while by the lower class and before it became adapted. And I'm not like a religious history major, but I know enough about this to understand that the upper class got more of like took it to more mean like, I have holy divine right. I belong here because of a higher power, and not like I had to earn this. And so that's where the beauty of that comes from too, is that it's based in some sort of truth. And then we end with Linear and Delenn saying goodbye to each other too, which is a great scene because Mira Furlan bringing the tears with her, like, live well, Linear, live your best life, keep doing it, and I'll see you when I see you. Like, she's not crying, but she's having an emotional experience, and so am I.
Yeah. Damn.
What an episode, man. What an episode.
Mm-hmm. Can I link you to something that I keep forgetting to bring up on the podcast?
Certainly.
Like months ago, my friend Kathleen, who you know, or I've told you about, found the like official Andreas Katsoulis website.
Oh, that's good. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, you just crack it open.
Oh my god.
Just look at this. I mean, isn't this a wonderful thing that we need to link?
AndreasKatsoulis.com. I can just tell people that. AndreasKatsoulis.com.
Yeah.
We got his signature. We got his booking company. We have...
Can I read his biography?
Please.
So, biography, here it says. So it looks like you can buy autographed photos. I don't know if they still have...
This website looks like it was last updated in 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly does. His biography says... apparently he's autographed trading cards also. That's fun.
Yeah.
Born in St. Louis, Missouri, Andreas is a cross between apple pie and baklava. Attracted from early childhood to being on stage, he took theater as an extracurricular in high school, as a major in St. Louis University, and received a master's degree in theater from Indiana University. With never a doubt or hesitation, Andreas jumped right into the professional theater world, performing in plays in St. Louis, New York, and Boston for 3 years, and then a 15-year heart and soul involvement with Peter Brook's International Theater Company, performing around the world with a challenging combination of improvisational theater in every imaginable circumstance and space, and prepared theater pieces in traditional as well as unconventional theater spaces, from Lincoln Center in New York and the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., to the mean streets of Brooklyn and marketplaces in remote African villages, from elite theater festivals in Iran, Avignon, and Belgrade, to prisons, mental institutions, rock quarries in Australia, barrios in Venezuela, sewage plants in Switzerland, the streets of Venice, Italy, in the fields with farm workers in California, in the lakes of Minnesota with Native Americans, in snow, in rain, in extreme heat, but never on a boat, yet. Then a part in Cimino's The Sicilian brought Andreas to Los Angeles, where he was immediately cast as Joey Venza in Ridley Scott's Someone to Watch Over Me, and as Arthur the chauffeur in Blake Edwards' Sunset. He's lived in Los Angeles since 1986, working in television and film, see resume of credits, and hopes soon to return to working in the theater. Which does he like best, theater or film? It's like trying to choose between apple pie and baklava. Andreas says, let's have both.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
I need to know who wrote that, and I need to shake their hand. This is beautiful.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
He lived such a life.
I know.
Rest in peace to a real one. Ah, beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. But never on a boat. That's the part where I was like, please read this. Cool. So thank you for that, Magellan. Let's take it. Oh, actually, I want to know what we're watching next week on Chatzylon 5.
All right. Let me look it up for you. Give me 1 second. Next week, we're watching 2 more episodes of Babylon 5. Season 5, Episode 3, The Paragon of Animals, and Season 5, Episode 4, A View from the Gallery. First, The Paragon of Animals. Military crises threaten the ongoing formation of the Interstellar Alliance, but Sheridan asserts its power. Okay, sounds normal. And then Episode 4, A View from the Gallery. An alien attack on Babylon 5 is viewed from the perspective of 2 lowly maintenance workers.
That's what I'm looking for, B5.
Right. Okay. That sounds like a fun, self-contained, different sort of ep.
Is that our Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead?
Yeah, it sounds like it's that kind of thing, huh?
Very good. I'm into it.
Great.
Awesome. I'll take it to the plug zone then if you're okay with that.
Ah, damn it. Sorry. I just read ahead in an episode summary and I spoiled something.
Nice.
That I'm actually upset about spoiling.
Okay.
So just don't do that.
I won't.
Okay. I'm ready to take it to the plug zone.
You can email us questions, comments, or concerns over at chatspod@gmail.com. You can send us tweets at chatspod on Twitter. That's CHATZPOD. Please also consider, rate us on iTunes. We like to think we're a 5-star podcast. I think we are, but whatever you think is valid, and that's how people hear about the show. If you want to help support us and get bonus content to your podcast catcher of choice, in addition to chats, you can check out patreon.com/chatspod, where at just $5 a month, you get all of our bonus content. That's the monthly commentary show, Commentary Chats, which you can also just get by itself for $1 a month. At $3, you can get Chats Nights as well. That's our hangout show. Every other week, we just talk about whatever, or listeners suggest us topics. And at $5, you get all of that, plus Pilot Chats, where Magellan and I are watching pilots of TV shows recommended to us mostly by listeners and by us, and trying to see what shows we're going to watch next for chats. We should be recording an episode soon about The Prisoner, the 1960s British television drama
we both watched
mystery show.
It's awesome.
It's super good.
Yeah.
That's a little teaser for that episode. So patreon.com/chatspod. We got some fun bonuses there if we hit new stretch goals. So check it out. Magellan, what's your chatsum for this week?
My chatsum for this week, let's see. I have been... This has been a rougher week for me. I'll just say that. And,
valid.
both between work and just personal stuff. And so I've been turning to the thing that brings me sanity in tough times, and that is watching clip after clip of the show Penn and Teller's Fool Us on YouTube, or just other places. I love that show. If you haven't seen that show, it's fantastic. Magicians come on and they try to do a trick that will fool Penn and Teller, and then Penn and Teller are either like, you got us, or they're like, they in code say, you didn't get us. And it's just really fun to watch. And I love that they're doing that and giving a platform for magicians to, get their voices out there and get their styles out there. And I've been, into learning more about magic. So I went to a magic store today in New York, where it's like a magic store, costume store kind of place. And like a dude did a magic trick for me, and then he sold me a cool deck that's like different than a normal deck, and now I can do tricks with it. So I think I'm gonna get into that as a hobby and as a thing to do as a teacher in off times at school. Yeah.
I love it. I love magic. I love spells, wizards, witches especially. And your noted Penn and Teller fandom continues in earnestness.
And I'm sure we won't ever talk about that in the main show in any capacity.
Never again. It's
show
almost
up
like
in
that's
Babylon
impossible.
5 at all, but yeah.
Nope.
Oopsie. Alan, what about you? What's your chatsum, sir?
My chatsum this week is a bit of an actual plug, like an old-fashioned plug, but also I'm not much of a fast food person usually. I'll get some stuff if I'm going to a movie. I'll get a quick burg. I love burgs, but I tend to think of myself as someone who just, like, I try to take care of myself. I try to eat well, but every once in a while it's like, just get a little nasty. Just get some garbage food and feel good about yourself. Just pull it out of the dump. Come on. I went my entire life never having had Taco Bell until this week. Just good old-fashioned American Mexican food. Taco Bell. I ordered a couple of things on recommendation from a friend. I'm going to be discussing my Taco Bell experience in detail on the Bottle Crow Reborn podcast, which is co-hosted by my friend Six, who I'm also on not the Garnet Wager. That is an old podcast we did, but we're currently doing the Joe Decorum, our Pokemon podcast. That's my other pluggy plug. But on Bottle Crow, Six and their other friend Nick talk about the video game Dota 2. And they also, since Dota 2 isn't always interesting to talk about, they have a whole segment where they talk about cooking, eating, food in general. It's super fun. Even if you don't give a crap about Dota 2, like me, you should listen to Bottle Crow Reborn. I'm going to be talking about Taco Bell. And if you don't feel like listening to a podcast, just go type into Google Maps, where's the nearest Taco Bell? Get yourself a chicken quesadilla. Get yourself a Crunchwrap Supreme.
Supreme, baby.
There it is. Magellan recommended me that one. I'm very happy with that. My experience
and then
with
I went and I had one today, and it was nice.
And I feel gross. But a good gross, like a sort of satisfied, cheesy gross. Yeah, just get out there, and take care of yourselves. Live your best lives. And thank you for listening to this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.